have another episode of OTC Unplugged, where we have a bit of a longer interview style with one of our OTC consultants. Today, I have the pleasure to talk to Gavin Halse. Gavin Halse is a previous director of OTC and currently is one of the shareholders and one of the consultants. But there is way more to Gavin that you can imagine. So I'm very excited to start this discussion with Gavin and to get to know him more. Hi, Gavin. How are you doing?
Hello, Wilmeen. Good to be here.
Yes, it is. We've struggled to organize this one between busyness and all other things. So I'm so happy that eventually we have the time to talk to one another officially. Previously, we've had a lot of interesting unofficial discussions.
Yes, and with the benefit of YouTube, it's in there in perpetuity. You can see this at any time.
That can be a good or a bad thing. But good content is a good thing that it's forever there. When I make a mistake, I hate it to be on YouTube.
All the bad stuff will be there forever. That's what really worries me.
Oh, well, that's life now. We try to be real and we try not to only show the best side. So let's go into it. So, Gavin, a very quick rundown with how did you come to life? No, not how do you come to life, but where did life start? And how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so very briefly, Wilmeen, I am a chemical engineer and studied that probably by chance. Initially, I was going to study mining engineering and then electrical engineering. But I got steered into chemical engineering, and mainly because that was where the opportunity was at the time when AECI, the big chemicals company, was offering bursaries. And basically, my dad encouraged me away from mining. He was with Anglo American, and he said no. He couldn't see me on a mine. It probably was very wise of him to have steered me in a new direction. And he also said that chemical engineering is one of the toughest degrees, and if you get through that, then you're going to be set for life. And I think he was right. So I started as a chemical engineer and went through the normal process engineering sort of job. And we can go into the details of that if you want. But I think the main thing for me was I always had an interest in technology, and I'm talking more about computing technology. Things like electronics and computers was always in the back of my mind. So as I worked, I started shifting away from pure engineering and looking more at the application of computers in engineering. And so to make a long story short, I was a chemical process engineer for, let's say, 7 years. And then I started an IT software company from within AECI and ran that company for probably around 15 years, after which it was merged and into another larger organization. And I ended up in a corporate role there and eventually decided to take early retirement to pursue my dreams. So that's roughly the chronology, but there's been a bit of engineering, a lot of computing, and I think the biggest thing for me was the starting of a business and running a business for 15 years. I think that was the highlight of my experience, and that's where the richness comes. It's all grounded on the engineering background, but it's the application of those skills in a business environment where you're leading people through good times and bad times to make a company work. I think that was where the real satisfaction came.
Sure. There's so many questions I have for you. But I want to go back a little bit. Tell me in a few sentences where you grew up, about your siblings, about your parents.
Yeah, so Johannesburg, one sister, normal family in Johannesburg, and I had the privilege of attending a private boarding school in Sandton, And I think that was, with some great sacrifices on the part of my parents, which, obviously really appreciate, because, that private education or private school, high school education offered me, a rich grounding with relationships, people that I got to know, top quality teaching, top quality school that, it encouraged you to just move away from the standard curriculum. It wasn't just about passing matric. It was about growing as a person. And so, that was it. And, straight out of school, I was conscripted like most people at the time in my category, and tried to approach the military with the mindset that this could also be a growing experience. That this is not going to be something I do begrudgingly, although I really didn't want to. But I did enter it with the mindset that this is an opportunity to stretch myself and learn new things. And boy, did I. I mean, that's another entire chapter. In fact, I was approached by somebody who wrote a book about those years, and there's a chapter dedicated to my time with him. He was one of our medics in the operational area, and he remembered me and contacted me almost 30 years later to say he wants to write this book because he remembers that time in the bush. And, he's written the book, and I've got a copy of it. And to be honest, I haven't read it fully. It's something about, we're on a journey, and, you have experiences, but you need to move forward all the time. So every now and again, it's good to reflect on your experiences and to go back in your life and try and see what you learned. But I don't want to dwell on that. And that time, the military, yes, it was a growing experience, but it also wasn't a very comfortable time in my life. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So straight after that, I ended up at UCT doing chemical engineering. And that was extremely rewarding. That was obviously in Cape Town. And, some of my best friends, my longest standing friends come from that time in my life. That's where I met my wife. It has been hugely influential in my life. It was those 4 years spent at UCT where the engineering was only part of the education. Can I say that?
I must say university was a shock on my system, but yeah, it really, I grew up during my varsity here. So you've met your wife at university, you're still married?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So she's a teacher and we have 2 children. I got quite a shock when I realized that one is over 30 and the one is approaching 30 rapidly. So time flies. And I think that's one lesson that I'm learning is that we don't have forever on this planet, and we need to make the most of the opportunities, to seize the opportunity as it comes, and take the chances as you get them, because you're not always going to get a second chance, and time is going to just go by so fast.
Yeah, the older we get, the more that reality is striking me as well. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to talk more about it because I get forever stuck on that. But it's so funny. My mum, many years ago, she had this joke to say that, the only time that she will stop worrying about her children is when we are all safely together in the retirement home. And now that I'm also over the 50-year-old battle, it seems I don't even think my mum will stop worrying about me if I'm with her safely in a retirement home. But
yeah,
it's an eye-opener when your children are growing older, and I can see it with her when I say, I can't believe I'm 50. And then she says, I can't believe I have a child that's already over 50 years old. And I start to see that with my children. My age is not that significant, but as my children are reaching their milestones, it became quite a reality shock for me.
it's a very rewarding process. I mean, to see young people mature and grow into adults, it's so rewarding. And I guess that is your legacy, actually, as your family. If you're privileged enough to have children, I think that is great. But in terms of regrets, there are so many years of those younger years when your children are growing up that just fly by, and you wake up one day and you realize you've missed it. You've missed so much of that experience. So and especially for people in corporate jobs who don't have the luxury of spending much time at home with their families, this is a big challenge and a sad part of our society, actually, that the family gets put on the side while the career gets sometimes a centerpiece. And especially when you're in high pressure situations, whatever it might be, whether it's in the corporate world or whether you're growing your own business, it is so tempting to let your professional life dominate everything.
Absolutely.
At the expense of some of the most important moments that you should be sharing with your family. So.
Yes, I made a lot of choices that did not help my career. And it didn't help finances to be more involved with my children, because there was a time where I also realized I have these two little ones and not spending enough time with them. And now when I look back, I lost out on career opportunities. I lost out on a lot of money, but I've gained so much by, and there was a time that I didn't spend time with them, but yes, I've gained so much by just being together with them and seeing how they're growing up. And now that they are starting to leave the house, I need to become, now I get busy again with career and other things. And that is exciting now as well, to change my focus into something else.
Yeah, but it also talks about what is really important. Is money important? Actually, not really. And the question I ask myself is, do I want to be rich and unhappy, or do I want to have just enough money to be comfortable but happy? And clearly, I want to be happy, and I don't value the wealth in terms of money. It's more in terms of, it's other things. It's your experience, your life experience, your influence, your legacy, the way you can influence other people, the way you influence your family, your health. Those are the things that matter. And it's quite a balancing act. But I think the temptation, and I've experienced this in my own career, and I've seen it in others, where the corporate world can suck the blood out of an individual. The most talented people can be reduced to a shriveled thing, like a prune. That's just like without substance anymore. But they're very good at their job, but they've got nothing else. So I think one of the things that, if I ever get asked, and I do, I won't say I coach, but I spend a lot of time with people, helping them, and it's always good to bring the balance back and remind them of the perspective that your job is not your life, and it can never be everything.
And nothing was so significant for me when I left Sasol years ago, and when I also took a voluntary package. And you think you're important until you are leaving, and you see that no one contacts you, no one cares, no goodbye, no nothing there, and you realize, what did I build it on? But when I leave my children or my husband for a week, they know that, and they miss me, and they contact me. No, so absolutely on that.
That is true, but but not to be too negative about it, because what is also like your children, when you get the same sense of satisfaction when you see them maturing and growing, when you've been a business leader and you've been responsible for people's well-being for a period, it is so rewarding to maintain those relationships even after the work and after you've left, and watch them succeed and thrive in whatever they've decided to do. So, so a lot of the guys that used to work for me are now running their own businesses, or they are IT managers in big companies, or they're just succeeding in life. And that is very rewarding. And you know, it's good to keep in contact with the few that you want to. Not everybody.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, a lot of the corporate world is like that. You know, you get your retirement golden watch or whatever it is, or your tie. I mean, I think I got a glass of Guinness at a pub. That was my parting gift. But you know, that's very temporary. What persists and what endures is the way you've influenced people along the way, and it's you know, and that is often, you know, you have to look for it. You don't take it for granted. You have made an impact in your job, and you know, it might not be, in your case, might not be in Sasol anymore. Those people might be in other companies, but your impact is still there and it's still measurable. And I think that is what makes it worthwhile.
You're right. As you were talking, I'm reminded there were like 3 or 4 people in Sasol that I kept contact with, and I've coached them with helping with their careers, and we still have contact so many years later. And it's people who become friends rather than their colleagues. I still have contact with one of my line managers, which is also one of the OTC consultants, which had a major impact in my life. It's definitely not all bad, but it's to be intentional in
Yes.
how you spend your time and not get trapped. Often I find people say, I have no choice. And I get very upset when people think they have no choices. You have a choice. You must just be willing to take the consequences of your choice. And that is sometimes what we are struggling with.
Absolutely right. I mean, I think there's nobody else responsible for your journey than you. You have to make it happen. Now, some people say, you know, you're the responsible for your career. I just want to replace that word career with journey. It's not, a career has got connotations. You know, there's an ending point where maybe you're the CEO and you earn lots of money and whatever. That's not what I'm about. I see, you know, life is a journey. You can make decisions to. I'm just going to deviate slightly. There's a book that I read when I'm retired or semi-retired called Necessary Endings. It's a book by a guy called Henry Cloud, I think.
I love Henry Cloud.
Now, the principle there is that at times in your life, it's important to cut the past, to cut the threads of the past, and to trim the things that are unnecessary in your life, to refocus and move forward. And I think, you know, for me, I've always been fortunate that somehow the new opportunities just presented themselves. I didn't really have to make a major decision to leave a company. It sort of like just happened that way. I mean, while I was an engineer, I was doing R&D work in synthetic fuels. The opportunity came to do PVC and polyethylene stuff in fact, with one of the OTC directors, Freek. And that's where I got to work in a different type of team. And then the opportunity, when that ended, I had the opportunity to join a biotechnology part, which was almost a completely different business with different leadership, different culture, different style. That's how I ended up in Durban. And then in that business, the opportunity arose to build an IT business. And, you know, so but the point is that at every one of those milestones, you have to sort of cut the past, to have some necessary endings and to move forward. And that is up to you. That decision, that journey is up to you to craft. And, you know, it's amazing that practically no matter what you do, it always works out. If you have the right, approach and outlook and willing to take the challenge as an opportunity to learn, then almost anything will work.
So, I wish I was so confident in that. No, I wish I could say that of all my ideas.
It does work like that. I mean, I had to take the step of resigning from quite a senior position in the corporate world. And I knew that it was a necessary thing to do because I was getting sucked into the corporate environment in a way that was not helping me. And it was quenching my my enthusiasm for life, my desire to be creative, to innovate, to be an entrepreneur. And at that point in time, the organization was heading in a different direction. It just wanted efficiency and profit. Now that's fine. That's how businesses need to run. But that was a moment where there was a realization that there had to be a necessary separation. Because in order for me to protect the things that mattered to me, I had to leave that world and try and create a new world, a new environment.
And
And I
that
think
takes a
that,
lot of bravery.
and it was quite something. It was like jumping off a cliff and hoping that you grow wings down on the way. Because and I'm, you know, I've sacrificed. I've lost out on stuff. I've lost out on opportunities as a result of that decision. But I've gained in other areas, and I've gained new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's quite an important learning that I've sort of drawn out of this whole experience, is that, first of all, you are responsible for your journey. Sometimes it's important to have necessary endings where you deliberately cut the tie in order to protect yourself and to give yourself the new opportunity. And generally everything works out if you just have the right approach. Now going forward in life, I think as the world changes, the corporate career for life is over. The new generation does not see themselves working for the same company for very long. In fact, 3 years is quite long in some of the outlooks. So the world of work is changing from being a career, within one organization, more to being a journey where you have to now make the opportunities, seize the opportunities along the way, realize that there's going to be ups and downs in that journey, but that is the reality of the future. And so, I'm very respectful of the guys that stick it out in corporate. I think that they're very brave to do that, and maybe it's suited for them.
It is, yeah.
But for myself, I needed a little bit more freedom in my life to be creative and to build new things outside of the rigid structures of quarterly profits.
Gavin, it's typical when I talk to you. For every minute that I talk to you, I have 3 more questions that I want to ask, and we're not going to get through all of them. So many themes, and I see this theme that you started to say when you're in the military. You use the experience to learn, and I hear that comes out the whole time, that every time you go through something, you use the experience to learn something new. So I think that is why you have so much that you can share, because of all that learning that came over.
So we in IT we have like a model with a T. And the horizontal part of the T is your sort of like horizontal experience and skills, whereas the vertical leg of the T is your depth of experience and knowledge in a specific area. And I'm a very much a guy with a long horizontal top part and very short stubs underneath, because I enjoy getting a wide range of experience, not necessarily becoming a real expert in any one of them, but being able to use that horizontal dimension to draw all of that together. That's what invigorates me.
And we definitely need that. But as you say, what we see in careers now is that people tend to do something different every 3 years, because sometimes we need those experts in those downward deep dives. And
absolutely.
I find a trend that we are losing that. And that is what I love working with OTC. I'm also a bit more of a generalist, but we have such experts in our company, which we work for. But it feels to me that the country's getting starved of the expertise. And it's not only in South Africa. I listened to a lady, a professor in America, very interesting. She has very strong Asperger, but she's incredibly efficient in the studies that she's doing. And she says, I can sit in a lift, and as the lift moves, I can tell you exactly what's wrong with the lift. And then she goes and call or in the aeroplane, she can exactly hear when the aeroplane goes, what's wrong. And then she will actually go and call the maintenance people. And she says, it's either a very old guy that can put his hand very quickly on the problem, or it's three young people that have no idea what she's talking about and not fixing it. So I do see it's a global problem.
Look, I think different cultures, it's different. Eh? So, I remember as a young engineer going to Germany to do some engineering projects work. And, the guys said, bring your questions. Okay. So I had my questions ready. They said, please send your questions in writing beforehand. So I thought, well, this is a little bit strange. I'm going to have a conversation with
Yes.
some German engineers. This was a little bit too formal for me. But I wrote down my list of questions, and I think there were about 20 questions. And I walked into this room with my colleague, and there were literally 24 people sitting around a big table. They were going to answer my 20 questions. And I got a complete fright because I thought I was going to talk to one or two experts. And they were introduced as doctors. Most of them had doctorates in the specific subjects.
Yes.
So my question might have been, please comment on the materials of construction of this pump, because there's chlorine in the liquid and it's high temperatures and pressures. And then they would introduce Dr. So-and-so from this company, who's an expert in that particular model of pump. And those particular conditions was the subject of his thesis. And he would answer my question very respectfully. And I think I learned a big lesson there about, the importance of depth as well. But
Yeah.
let me come back to it. Those guys are completely fulfilled in their domain expertise and knowledge. That's their life. They are getting their life satisfaction is out of that. And I have all the respect in the world for that. But back in South Africa, I would never have been able to start a company and grow a company successfully with one vertical depth of experience.
Absolutely.
It's necessary, I think, in today's business world to have a much broader perspective on things. And it covers, just not only technical experience. Your engineering is a very good grounding in problem solving. But your biggest problems are going to come with people, relationships, stuff like that. Trying to lead people, trying to motivate people, trying to, as we say in IT, herd cats in a common direction. And the problem becomes even more challenging when the people are very talented and skilled. Leading a team of highly talented people that have got much better skills than you ever will have, is even more challenging. And I think that's the area that fascinates me far more than whether you can have chlorine pit corrosion in a pump, because I can leave that to some doctor. I find it much more invigorating to work in an environment where the people's talents and creativity and skills need to be unlocked towards a common goal. I think that's challenging.
Oh.
And I don't know that I've got all the answers, but I know that that's a worthwhile pursuit for me.
Yeah, you're right. When I interviewed Charles as well, he said one thing that he saw the difference between South African engineers and international engineers is we in South Africa, we tend to be a little bit more generic, and internationally they are much more detailed, specific. So I think the example that I've used with that lady, it was more the technicians that she saw a lack in that rather than the actual engineering.
No, you're 100% right. And I think the younger engineers or the younger technicians now have a completely different outlook. And I think it's a big challenge. It's one of the reasons I think a company like OTC needs to exist, is because the greybeards, the people that have that long depth of experience, are dying out. And what's been replaced is not necessarily greybeards anymore. These young engineers are far more agile and I don't know how to express it, but they are shorter term focused. They have a much more ambitious outlook on things, and they seek much more diversity. So they will work overseas. They will work in many companies. They will pretty much do what I explained I was doing in the beginning, seek new opportunities.
You were early for this trend.
Yes.
I see.
And therefore, I don't know that depth there's going to be a shift where depth of knowledge is going to die out a little bit. And another big factor in this whole thing, and you're going to laugh when I mention this, is the role of technology in this. AI is fundamentally changing the nature of knowledge. Knowledge is now becoming a commodity. I can go to AI and I can get the answers to my deepest engineering questions. And if 90% of it will be correct, okay, we've got to worry about the 10% of it that's not correct. So knowledge or information is now a commodity. It's free. It's freely available. It's cheap. And AI is just one of those catalysts that's going to change things, because then the question is, well, what is the role of a technical specialist if your knowledge is now a commodity? And I spent a lot of time working in the chemicals industry where within AECI in particular, there was a big move to exit commodity chemicals and move into the area of specialization, high value, low volume specialty chemicals. So we shut down ammonia plants, we shut down all our textile businesses, we got rid of big sections of plant in favor of the small specialized chemical businesses. Now, that's just an analogy, but now knowledge, the companies that thrive on knowledge have realized that their product is now a commodity. So they have to now become specialists again, or have to find new niches to get out of that commodity business, because the commodity is now just being replaced by AI and AI-related tools. And if we think we've seen it all, we haven't seen a fraction of it yet. And if you think about 2 years ago, very few of us knew what ChatGPT was. Now we all think we're experts in ChatGPT. It's only 2 years. Give it another 2 years and another on top of that, and there will be fundamental shifts in the way that knowledge is being created and consumed in the world. So that's going to be very challenging for engineers, is to find their niche now. What is the thing that is missing that is no longer a commodity?
The interesting thing with AI, I totally agree with you that knowledge is not the bottleneck anymore. Knowledge is freely available. When I was younger, you wanted to do a project, you had to go to the library or you had to own encyclopedias to be able to do a project or any interesting thing. And now we just Google it. I know when my children are small, they said it as one word, not Google it. Mama, just Google it, almost like it's one word. That is how they grew up. But I think, and as you say, AI is 90% correct. It's a 10% we need to worry on. And I believe for the future, discernment is going to be one of our big skills that we need. But for us on the technical field to have discernment, you'll need some experience to know what to discern, what is right and wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to be very critical in the future.
I agree. And, I don't have the answer to this. I'm battling with it to try and foresee what's going to happen in the future myself. My son's a software developer, and I advised him to get into this field. He didn't want to go to university, so this was somewhere where he could go to a college, he could get qualified, certified, and do his thing. Now, his job can be replaced by a software agent that's using AI. So now I have to advise him what's next. Where do you go from here? Now he's 30 years old, and I don't have the answer to that. I don't have so what I've decided to do is immerse myself in understanding how AI works. So I spend a lot of time exploring AI, because for me, maybe it's the engineer in me. I need to understand what is an LLM. It's a large language model. How does it work? When people say they train an LLM, what are they actually doing to get the thing to? when you're using ChatGPT, what happens behind the scenes? And what I do in my spare time. In fact, it's taken quite a bit of time because I'm enthusiastic and excited about it. Is I've written software with the help of AI to write the software that helps me make use of these AI tools from companies like OpenAI and Google and so forth. Call their APIs, we call them APIs, Application Program Interface, but anyway, call it with software in order to see what the response is and understand the limitations of what AI can and can't do. And despite, so the point is I'm trying to get through the hype, cut through the noise and the excitement and get to the real nitty-gritty of what makes this stuff work. Because I believe, first of all, if I understand the limitations of AI, then I will understand the gap where humans will fit. So, and AI is very limited. Don't be fooled. You can seemingly get very good results out of AI, but AI has, at the moment, it has limited contextual knowledge.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's like an encyclopedia, those books behind you on the shelf. I think those are dictionaries, not encyclopedias, but anyway.
Dictionaries, yeah.
But, an encyclopedia doesn't have context. So you can ask it a question and you'll get an answer.
Yeah.
AI is exactly the same. But what AI doesn't understand is me. AI doesn't know my history. If I ask ChatGPT, put my name in there, I'm not going to get much useful out. Nothing that resembles who I really am.
Only what you were willing to feed the internet.
Correct. So giving AI good quality context is so important to get good results out of it.
Yeah.
And I think, back to my engineering, because one of my interests is IT and manufacturing. The vision is using AI in manufacturing processes to make the manufacturing processes more efficient and so forth. But the gap is that the AI agents do not have the necessary context to make good decisions. So the question is, how do you give AI agents context on a factory? Take a typical plant. You're running certain flow rates, pressures, temperatures, equipment, pumps, vessels, reactors, and all that sort of stuff. Now you ask an AI agent to optimize this. The AI agent needs to know, was there delivery? Did a tanker arrive to the gate? Did the tanker put a new raw material into the process? Because maybe it's bad quality. The AI doesn't know whether that's the case or not. The AI doesn't know that an operator made a mistake, or that some guy drove his bakkie into a section of plant and then had to shut it down in an emergency. So a lot of the things that I'm looking at is how we can extract real world context and feed that into the AI tools. And I think there's a role for humans, is to find a way of channeling information into AI effectively so that you get that 100% result, not the 90% result.
Well, Gavin, I have to laugh at you. You use AI to generate AI. I think that's very funny. Me and my children sometimes laugh at the commercials that we see. It's a commercial that's clearly AI generated that say, if you want to learn this new skill, do not use AI. And I just think it's so funny that they use AI to advertise something not to use AI. But that's beside the point. Many of us use ChatGPT like Google. And I think many of us don't really know all the value it can go. But I want to go into a different direction now. You've left the corporate world as a CEO of a company to nothing for a while or something new. That is a big impact on what did you learn there on your identity? Is there anything that you want to share with us on what you've learned in that experience? Because it definitely has something in your identity if you're in such a high position, and then all of a sudden you don't have that.
Yeah. So look, I think a couple of things. When you reach a very senior position in a company, and the company I started was quite small, so nothing grand. I mean, we became bigger by merging with other companies, And then, you get bigger and bigger because you're bringing in other companies, other people. But in the beginning, it was a relatively small company, and you're the boss, you're the leader. The buck stops with you. First of all, it's a very challenging role, but it's also a very lonely position.
Yeah.
I must be honest, it's not. You are, because you're the point of last. What is it? The point of last resort.
Yes,
when things
last
go
return is,
completely wrong. The buck stops with you. And so carrying that for probably 15 years, it does impact you. So that's the first thing, is that you are constrained in many ways, and you're quite lonely. As the company grew bigger and bigger into the corporate world, my job shifted from growing and innovating more towards governance and meeting targets, meeting numbers. It's
less creativity.
Far less creativity, far less freedom to do or to experiment, to do new things. Now, the smaller company grew very successfully because we could experiment. We experimented with our customers, but we designed things that they needed, they liked it, they bought it. We then resold the same type of thing to other customers. But we were able to experiment, we had that freedom. In the larger organization was much more structured. Innovation they tried to put into a box. They actually gave me the job of innovation for about 9 months, and I had absolutely zero impact because the environment was just not conducive to it. First of all, if you're going to create an innovation division in a business, you need to empower the people that are in there, and you need to give them budget. You need to give them some freedom. You can't hold them to other KPIs and then say, in your spare time, please innovate. It doesn't work like
You
that.
have freedom in this small box. Come on. I gave you some freedom, but you guys want freedom in this big box.
So that was quite frustrating. And, because it was listed, the company was listed, there were significant governance requirements on the company. And I ended up finding myself becoming very fluent in things like King 3 governance and the roles of directors and all that sort of stuff. And I was moving way out of the zone that energized me. What energized me was understanding the customer's problems and solving the customer's problems. So, eventually I thought, no, this is just heading in a direction that I'm just going to become that shriveled prune. So I had to make that change. Now, what did I learn out of that experience? I learned that it's necessary sometimes to make the decision to cut, like the necessary endings that we talked about earlier. It's necessary to do it, even if it's going to be uncomfortable to you. But comfort should not be the reason you take a particular path in life. You should be prepared to go through some periods of discomfort and challenge in order to grow into something new. And, again, maybe the other thing is that things work out eventually. They might not, I might have less money than I would have had, but I've got far more freedom. I can now innovate. I can work on things that I find interesting. And if I compare myself back to my colleagues who back in the organization that I left, they are burnt out. They are completely drained and overwhelmed with incredibly demanding targets. They haven't innovated. Maybe I'm being a bit cruel. They have innovated, but the rate of innovation has gone way, way down because they're chasing quarterly targets that are very aggressive growth targets, and that doesn't allow you space for anything other than just focus on the job and get it done. So I know about AI. I've learned how to program an AI agent. I've learned how to develop software using AI. I can tell you the developers that used to work for me, none of them have done what I've done because they've been focused on trying to get the old stuff to carry on working successfully. And I think that's, again, that's just why it's important to make these decisions, and they might be difficult, but I had I had a supportive wife and family, And if I hadn't have made that, I wouldn't have joined OTC because I wouldn't have known about OTC. So that's perhaps also a good thing that came out of it.
Came out of it. And it's such a different skill set that one needs when you're in corporate than when you are an entrepreneur. I find that I have very little entrepreneurial skills. Well, I believe I have. I struggle to get something off the ground to make a success. So it's really a different type of talent set that you need to do that. Or maybe because I grew up corporate and I never knew anything else. It was very difficult for me to do that transition. So what do you think is required to be a successful entrepreneur?
Just before I answer that directly, I do want to recognize the role of mentors and highly influential people in your life, even in the corporate world. So my decision to leave corporate wasn't because I hated everything about it. I had some very good times and I had some very supportive people. And it was actually some of those supportive people that encouraged me to do the move. Well, for the reasons that I've just mentioned, that they understood that it would unlock my creativity again. They could see that this was not where I needed to be, where I wanted to be. And I knew that I was supported both inside and outside. That's why I do a lot of work back for the company that I left still, because the relationships are still in place, they're sound. But always along life, there are one or two very influential people that are good mentors to you, and they are gold. They are gold. Nothing happens without somebody opening a door for you. I can guarantee that as well. You might have to make the hard choices yourself, but if you analyze it very carefully, there's always somebody who's opened a door along the way and made it a little bit easier for you to make that call. So then you asked about, so what does it make to be a successful entrepreneur? I think vision, a deeper purpose, beyond making money. You need to have something that's driving you. You have to have this ambition that's a little bit beyond just, you don't want to just start a company. You want to solve a problem. You want to help the world. But you also don't want to be unrealistic about the whole thing. You've got to be grounded in reality. So not everybody can be Elon Musk. Not everybody can envisage a future where we're putting people on Mars and creating new civilizations out in space. But I can tell you that fundamentally it's the same thing that's driving Elon Musk that should drive typical entrepreneurs. Successful entrepreneurs will be driven by the desire to make a difference, to do something. They must have a vision, they must have a goal, they must have an objective. They're not just doing it for the fun, not for the journey. There must be a destination as well. I think that's important because when the wheels come off and things get messy, the only thing that you've got is to fall back on your original goal that you set or your vision. That's the thing that grounds you and brings you back in line. And so, if you're an entrepreneur just messing around, you're not going to be successful because the first time you hit an obstacle or a problem, you're going to try and find an easy way out and an easy way around it. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be natural for you to push through the hard parts. I call it, I've heard this expression before, it's not mine. It's called the messy middle. Things are always exciting in the beginning when you form your vision, and things are always exciting at the end when you reach your target. But in the middle, there's that messy middle. It's like
perseverance to push through that messy middle.
That's right. It's like the Comrades Marathon when at the start of the Comrades, everybody's full of excitement and buzz and adrenaline, and they're full of carbohydrates and everything. And they know they're going to run this 80-kilometer marathon. And they're also very excited at the end that they've finished it. They fall over the line, they collapse, but they've done it. They've succeeded. But nobody ever looks at the poor guy sort of like walking sideways at Cato Ridge because he can't stand anymore, or spraying water over his head because he's so hot. That's the messy middle. And an entrepreneur who doesn't have a goal or an objective is going to stop at Cato Ridge and he's going to bail. It's only the ones that have got the vision to get through to the end that's going to succeed. for what it's worth.
Now that we live in Natal, I've never watched the Comrades in real person, but in July we had the opportunity that one of my children's friends live in Drummond area and said we can come to their house, but we had to go ridiculously early before they closed off the road. So that was a story in itself. So we were sort of at that halfway point, watching people. There are actually people that's strong at that point. I couldn't believe my eyes how someone could have run 40 kilometers and still run as if they are not tired. But we definitely saw those strugglers around.
Yeah.
And if I can take that analogy further, and many times they get new energy if there's people on the side cheering them up or giving them a slice of lemon or something else. So I do believe in the entrepreneurial journey. As you said, that supporting structure, your wife and everyone was so supportive. You need
Yes.
those supporters along the way to help you. But I can imagine skills are very important. It's a different skill set to sell your product. It's a different skill set to market it. So you either need to have the skills yourself or surround you with people who have those skills. Especially with early days when you don't have a lot of people walking this journey with you.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time at the moment in marketing software products, and I'm working with an agency who's digitally marketing our stuff. And I thought I was a bad marketer. And my mentors keep reminding me that you actually sell very well, not because you're a good marketer, but just because you're authentic and you have that engineering background, you have the experience, you have the knowledge, you can sell. And I thought, no, I don't want to be a salesman. This is the worst possible profession in the world. But I keep getting reminded by the mentors. And actually the guys that write the checks are the ones that are telling me I can sell. The ones that say I can't sell and I'm not a salesman are the ones who don't buy our stuff anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so marketing is quite something. I think it's all about, in our business, which is consulting, professional services and consulting, a lot of it is built around trust and credibility, consistency, authenticity. Those are the things that customers value. And yes, they do value your skills, but this is not a commodity anymore. Remember, AI can do the stuff. You know, AI, do you trust AI? Is AI authentic? No, probably not. So those are the things, those human factors are the things that make you unique and make you able to sell. And if a customer knows that even if you don't have the skill, if I'm going to buy your services, if I know that you're committed to what I need and you're going to go and find those skills and you're going to upskill yourself on the way and you're going to be open and transparent with me about that journey, I will hire you in a moment, not a problem. So it's all about, the attitude, the credibility, the trust. And I think that's very much professional services for you. And the professional services going forward is even more important because as we said earlier, AI becomes the commodity. AI is taking knowledge and information, making that freely available. I mean, you remember maybe on one of the projects that we had recently where the customers are using AI to cross-check our work. That's a new world. That's a world where the consultants are completely taken aback because now the customer is throwing back knowledge to you that and putting you on the spot. So no.
Gavin, we don't want to tell customers to do that. You shouldn't have said that. We don't want them to double check us. But it was lovely. They shared it with us and they also said, go and check whether this is factual, which I think we've appreciated a lot to say, okay, that does put things into a better perspective. Maybe there was one small mistake, but it's not totally correct. So it was lovely how we worked together at the end to make sure that it's still factual. And we use AI without replacing our services.
And that's important. But finding that balance is so important. And you look at the big consulting companies, the big five consultancies, they are having an enormous transformation objective now because this is a real threat to their underlying business model.
Yeah.
I think for OTC, if you look specifically, OTC is a niche, small boutique, if you like, consultancy. It does have its areas of expertise and speciality that no AI will ever replicate, and that's what it can offer. But the big, broad, generic guys are going to struggle because AI makes everything for free.
True.
My one mentor, very influential guy in AECI, I said to him, "I'm starting the software business using your money." He sort of like laughed about the money part. But he said, "Why do you start a software business? All software will become free in the future." And I laughed at him. I said, "Nah, come on, this is a joke." He said, "Watch me." And
a lot of free stuff.
he said he had a lot there because in reality, enterprise software is still very expensive. Speak to SAP, you'll find out very quickly. But you can do a lot of stuff at no cost anymore because open source, people sharing the information openly with each other, has changed the nature of software businesses and development. So everything is becoming free. And consulting, just based on just sharing information, that's also going to become free. What's important again, coming back, authenticity, trust, your commitment to the customer's objective, your trustworthiness to take the customer's goal and make them your own goal and to be committed to that. Those are things that AI will never be able to replicate.
But for those same reasons, I believe that is why South Africa's next voting cycle will look very, very different if trust and integrity is really being broken down. But let me not go into politics. Gavin, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about?
Well, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, we've covered an enormous amount of
broad
ground.
range.
So I think I don't have much except each individual. Let's go back to some of the themes. Each individual is going to be responsible for their journey. Let's not call it a career anymore. Their journey is going to involve periods of change where they deliberately close down and move to the next thing. And that's going to become more and more prevalent with the younger generation in future. So be responsible for your own. Treasure the mentors in your life, the people that open the doors for you. Those are the guys. Nobody ever succeeds without the help of somebody else. I'm convinced of that. And I can list the names of probably half a dozen, maybe a dozen people along the way of my journey that have opened doors and said, let's give Gavin a chance. He's fallen on his face. He should be fired. He should be, disposed of. But let's open the door and give him a chance. And so recognize those mentors. Recognize the people around you that are your supporting structures, whether they be your mentors, but also the people that work for you. Maybe the one last thing I can add. Nothing replaces recruiting good people into your team.
Yes.
Nothing. If you can surround yourself with good quality people, the world becomes your oyster.
And I have a chat about culture. Sorry, I just quickly want to pop in about changing culture. And I have these analogies. And one of my analogies, when you make cheese, you need culture to make cheese. But what is the product? The starting, the feedstock is your people, and that is the milk. And one drop of sour milk can spoil the whole batch. So it latches onto this whole idea that you have as well, saying that make sure you have the right people that you surround yourself.
It is so important to get the right team. And if you've got toxic elements in your team, to get rid of that. You've got to do it. It's maybe difficult to do, but you've got to recognize it and get rid of it because it's 100% correct. You make cheese, I brew beer. My home brewing knowledge tells me, one infection can ruin a complete
the whole batch.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're living with, of course, I don't throw anything away. I try and drink it all. You're living with this bad batch for at least a month, 2 months, maybe.
I'm not that
so you don't want that pain in life. And also maybe just a little bit of a controversial thing, but if you have that toxic element in leadership positions, and you inferred earlier to politics and why an entire country can end up on its knees. Look at the leadership and whether there's toxicity at that level. Get rid of that. Everything will flourish.
Yes. You're right. In my corporate career, there was amazing times, and my amazing times was when I had a great boss, great colleagues, and a nice challenging project to work on. But there were times that I got in contact with toxic leaders, and then I had to make the choice. I'm not willing to do this for my career. I'm not willing to work. And then I walked away and do something else. So we can walk away from that and not submit yourself to that. Gavin, what is next on your journey?
For me, I think we have to be realistic in our lives. I thought I'd retired when I left corporate. I'm now working harder than ever before. But I think it's important that when you move into the later stages of your life, that you create a portfolio of activities rather than a career. I'm not about recreating my corporate world in my new environment. I don't want to do my old job anymore. I want to create a portfolio of activities that is balanced and that includes the things that I could never do within the corporate world. So I do stuff. I'm experimenting with AI. I'm writing software. I'm coaching people. I work for my old company and I try and help them where I can. But in between that, I want to go to the mountains. I want to spend time, on the beaches. I want to go into the wilderness. I want to experience, the full richness of nature and the world that we're living in, and different places and different cultures. We are constrained by time, money, the cost of air tickets, and all of those things. But sometimes those experiences are worth the cost. And I will be seeking those out more and more as we go forward.
This area we live in is so beautiful with the wildlife, but it sounds to me you are playing on two extremes currently. You're playing in the extreme of electronic AI depth, and then you're going to the extreme of nature and no AI and no electronics. So that is where you get your two balance by having these two extremes, it seems to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's just about not getting pigeonholed into one thing.
Yes. Yeah, I love to tell people when I'm coaching them as well, there's more to you than what meets the eye. Not that I'm better than, but there's more to being an engineer. There's more to life than being a mum. And I just want to use just a mum. Being a mum is amazing. It's not like I'm looking down to it, but we can't define ourselves with only one or two slices of life. There's so much more to us than only the first obvious thing. And what I love when I'm working with people is to take that onion and the layers and see all these layers of the individuals. And there's more to each and every individual than the one or two things that society or other people are trying to define them as.
If I go back to my chemical engineering...
But you're a whole bag of onions, Gavin. You're not only one onion.
If I go back to my chemical engineering class, and we graduated in 1986, if I go through LinkedIn, I think one is doing pure engineering still.
Yeah.
So that's out of a graduate of, I think we probably about 16, 17 graduated final year. One is doing engineering, the rest are doing other things, ranging from, business entrepreneurs, financial analysts. One guy in AECI, I remember this, he was one of the brightest engineers in the engineering department. He left and he became a greengrocer, much to the shock and horror of his colleagues. How's this guy? He's got an engineering degree, he's now doing greengrocing. And he had his own little market garden going, and he was growing his own vegetables. I don't critique that. I think he's followed his passion. Maybe he's using his engineering to make the best possible vegetables in the world. But as long as he's pursuing his dream, and being fulfilled as a human, I think he's making full use of his engineering degree.
Absolutely. Studying engineering or anything is not a jail or a death sentence. It's just the next stepping stone to wherever it's going to go. I'm trying to, people are sometimes so scared of, oh, then if I study this, it's going to be the end. There's going to be nothing else. No, there's so many directions within chemical engineering that you can do. But even if you can combine it, as you say, maybe, I mean, one of my chemical engineering friends are the MD of a seed business, but it went via Kunsmis fertilizer into the seed business. But I can see the process engineering thinking is still coming out. But
Yes.
it led to different directions. It was not a waste. It made him the person who he is. It's that slice of him that's still there, but it's not the full picture at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to put chemical engineers at the top of the pyramid, because I think most
Why not?
I think most engineering and other scientific, technical, the STEM subjects, all of those degrees, they all have the same potential to provide a solid foundation of good grounding is the word. But what you do with that knowledge is up to you. You want to specialize, go for it. Nobody's holding that against you. If you want to become the guy who looks after the specific model of pump, do it. For me, become a person that's determined to try out life's experiences to the full. Use your engineering to get you there, but and to help you solve problems along the way. But don't feel constrained by that. The world is
and I love the curiosity of life, whether it's technology, as you say, whether it's nature, whether it's understanding people. That's something I still wanted to talk to you about. Our time is running out, but to try to see how to motivate people. There's so much variety and diversity in life that if we are just curious about life, we're going to gain so much, and we become more interesting, I believe. And we can never be bored with what we have available.
Absolutely. Well said.
Anything else, Gavin?
I think that's it.
It was lovely. We can carry on forever, but my throat is starting to croak, and I know you had a small croak in the beginning, but it held out very nicely through this interview. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this chat.
You.
I loved it.
Thank you. Thanks for the privilege.
And with that, we brought you another episode of OTC Unplugged, getting to know one of our other consultants. It was an authentic, a truthful conversation. And as we say, I think that is the thing that's going to beat AI at the end, is authenticity and truthfulness. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time. Bye-bye.